Welcome to Naked Comedy with David Zucker, where we unpack the craft, structure, and secrets behind great comedy. This podcast is filmed in front of a live audience of our MasterCrash members. If you'd like to participate in these conversations live, join us at mastercrash.com.
Hello, guys, and welcome to Naked Comedy with legendary writer, director of Airplane, the Naked Gun series, Top Secret, so many more funny, hilarious movies, the one and only David Zucker. And today, what a way to kick off our very first episode than with the star of Airplane joining us all the way from Hawaii. He's one of my favorite humans on this planet, Robert Hayes. And this episode is being recorded live inside our MasterCrash community. If this sort of dialogue is what gets you excited, you can join this wonderful group of comedy writers, directors, enthusiasts by visiting mastercrash.com. So welcome, guys. Welcome, gentlemen. So happy to have you here. Silence. Absolute
What am I
silence.
supposed to say?
Let's start with an airplane-related question. And a specifically Bob-related question. I know that casting Ted Stryker was one of the more difficult positions, roles to cast. It took a long time. It was hard. You auditioned some random people who weren't that great. And then what was it like when you finally found Bob and the first time you met him? I'll ask you, David.
We did read a bunch of people, and we even considered Jerry Mathers. In fact, the part was originally written as the Beaver. That's how off we were, and we had a learning curve. I think we read a lot of people. I think one of the guys was a famous actor's son. I don't know if you knew about this, Bob, but Tyrone Power's son.
Oh.
I think read for us. And we also read David Letterman. Barry Manilow was suggested. We never seriously considered that. That's where we almost panicked and threatened to leave Paramount over that. But Howard Koch, who was our executive producer, and he was this old guy, he must have been 62 at the time, but he said,
really
don't
old.
worry, this will pass. You don't have to do anything. Actually, Bob can take the story from there to explain how we got connected with Bob. It was through his manager, Beth Voicu.
Agent. Yeah. She had just been working with Howard Koch because you guys apparently had been back and forth in New York, Chicago, Dallas, Seattle, and Minneapolis, and LA, all over the place. And we're having a tough time with it. And she called up and said, Howard, I got your Ted Stryker. And he said, well, bring him by. So she brought over me and the headshot and whatever. Maybe she sent it over early. I don't know.
We got the headshot first, and we said, well, he looks fine, but can he talk,
So I came in, and I remember that we just started right in just joking and laughing. Then they said, well, let's have you read. So I read. You guys like the reading, so you said, well, let's put him together with Julie, because I didn't realize they already had found Julie in New York. She was so perfect that it was just undeniable. And I don't remember if it was you, Jerry, or Jim. I think it might have been Jim that said, we liked your spit take.
That's the one you tested with, yeah.
Yeah, and thinks he's Ethel Merman. So we did that, and then we left, and I guess you guys went over. What do you think? I heard that you told the casting folks at Paramount, we've got the guy that we want, Robert Hayes. And they said, Robert Hayes, he's in a sitcom that we've
Yeah, he can't do this.
You don't want him. You want something like from Saturday Night Live or some big movie or something, Anyway.
Oh, I thought actually you were talking about just the scheduling. All along they wanted us to get Bill Murray or Chevy Chase, much famouser and bigger. Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing that I heard was, oh, well, you don't want him. He's just one of our sitcom actors, which was kind of like a...
I don't remember that. It could have happened. Yeah.
Oh, it sticks out in my mind.
Really? Okay. I don't remember that, but it wasn't on our radar, the whole sitcom thing.
You came over to Soundstage 32 where we were doing Angie. You guys were going, psst, psst. And I looked over and you were back in the back where the psych was behind the set. And it was just a little area only about this wide. And so we were crowded back along where the curtain was up against the wall, the psych up against the big wall. And you said, okay, well, we've decided you're the one. And so I just remember sort of, we all kind of were jumping a little like kids, like, it's fun. That's good. Yeah. Well, we got to get back to work. And I said, yeah, me too. And Jim told me that as you guys were walking back across the Paramount lot that one of you said, maybe we should look at the sitcom that he's in. And so you did, and you thought, what have we done?
We hate sitcoms. We always have.
And it's
will.
totally different. I mean,
And
you got a live audience of 300, 200, 300 people. So you're playing to them. You've got cameras. So instead of one camera, you've got three. Then it was three.
Yeah.
And now it's 4 or 5. And you've got lighting. So you're standing in the sun. And instead of having a shadow from the sun, you've got about 20 shadows all around you from all the lights. And you're playing to the millions of people that are looking at it. So it's just a mishmash. And it's over the top, and you're holding for laughs.
We had immediate buyer's remorse.
Yeah.
It was what have we done? It's like the last scene in Bridge Over the River Kwai, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Bob, what was your reaction when you first read the script?
Well, my agent gave me the script, and I had to fly to Minneapolis for a new station, just defected from NBC to ABC. And it was a big, big market, big station. And Howard Cosell and a whole bunch of people from ABC were on the plane. And that's when I read the script. There was a stewardess, tall, slender, not really young, not really old, but she just looked, you felt like she was older, one of those people that, like, when they're born older and wiser than, more mature than the other kids. She looked like one of those, had a bun tied up and behind her. I was laughing. I was reading the script. There was something that made me laugh on every single page. And out loud, mostly, she came up and she said, I couldn't help but notice you seem to be enjoying that. What is it? I said, it's a script. I'm going in this week to meet on this. Do you want to read it when I'm done? She said, I would love to. So I gave it to her, and she pulled down the little jump seat and sat down and started reading it on her lap. Very prim, very proper, knees together. And I looked up a little while later, and she was kind of smiling once in a while. And as she was reading, and then I went back to my stuff, and I looked up a little while later, and I saw her really laughing. And then later, her knees were apart. Her hair was undone. It was falling down. She was laughing uproariously, that extreme and exaggerated. And then she came trying to push everything back together as she handed it back to me, which I had forgotten. I just thought of that. That's where I read it, on a plane. And it was the funniest thing that I'd ever read.
We have a question from one of our members.
The question is for Mr. Hayes. What does this film represent for you, and what is the lesson you will always carry with you after this experience? And by the way, are you still in touch with the inflatable automatic pilot?
Well, Otto and I have a relationship. We like to keep it quiet. I've been just working my way up in television, and Angie was my first series, and Airplane was my first feature. And because it hit the way it hit, it made such an impact that I went from having to pound the pavement and go in and meet and read and try to get a role in a movie. And I try to get 10 meetings, 10 interviews, see if I could get 5 callbacks, because I could get one job out of that. All of a sudden, I remember I had a stack of about 10 or 20 scripts, and they say, which one do you want to do? And it was a shock. So it was a fun shock, but it was really something. It was like winning the lottery. But then you were so associated with that, you're not thought of for the baby killer as easily, as readily as you might have been before. You could have lucked out and played, something vile and sick. Instead, you're stuck playing things that are funny and that make people laugh, which actually I suppose isn't all that bad. Because if you eat a baby that's out of season, you could get sick. It's awful. What was the name of Airplane in Italy?
The English title is The Craziest Plane in the Old Universe. That's the title. Can you believe that?
How do you say that in Italian?
L'aereo più pazzo del mondo.
I had been told one in Italy, but until you said it, I'd forgotten that.
Hi, Mr. Hayes. I was just wondering how many times you had to play it straight in a comedy role. How many times you get to stop because either it laughed or did you always get it right?
I hadn't been too far removed from the theater. I started out in theater. And in the theater, you can't say, cut. All right, let's go back. Let's do that again. And especially like in long runs, you've got other actors on stage that get bored and sometimes try to pull little things and crack you up on stage. It's very professional, I know, but that's actually what people do sometimes. I was pretty good at it then. I was still pretty good at it. I did have a one poor, unsuspecting. Gosh, I wish I could remember his name, which I cannot. But he was on the crew, one of the grips, and in the cockpit, I remember they asked me a question, and I thought about it. And he was right over, from the cockpit, just standing right over there. I can't even remember now where the camera was, but it was away from him. He was by himself. And when they asked me the question, I just looked at him and he cracked up. And it was loud enough. They had to cut the scene. And they were all yelling at him like, "Hey, Fred, oh, gee, you missed it all." And, everyone ragging on him. We really were all having a great time. So they said, "Okay, let's go again." So we went again. And I just thought about the line I was supposed to be, trying to decide something. And I just looked at him and he put his hand up to his mouth and he walked away. And then he got further away and he turned around and I was still really agonizing over what was I going to say? But I watched him the whole time. And every time he turned around, he saw that I was looking at him and he wound up at the far end of the stage against the wall and he curled up down at the bottom next to the floor. That was an example of why they cast me as Ted Stryker, because that was the longest, most rambling answer to your question.
Okay. And then in the movie, Bob goes off on these tangents and people hang themselves and kill themselves. So it was real typecasting.
It's funny. They said, "Well, can you tell us a little about yourself?" And so when I started talking to him, I asked him later, I said, "What was it?" They said, "Well, when we all woke up, we realized, my God, that's him." So they cast me.
Is that what we really said? That would have been clever if we had actually said that.
Yeah. No, not at all.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's totally made up, right?
Yeah. Sorry.
I thought maybe
No one
we
does
made a
that.
joke. Yeah.
Yeah, forget I ever
used
said
that
that.
one. Yeah. In those days, Paramount would throw away all the outtakes. There were some scenes that we shot that, were deleted scenes. I mean, they didn't work, but I wish they would have been saved.
I think outtakes, the deleted scenes and outtakes, when you buy a DVD of it or whatever, if you buy any of those things anymore, that's some of my favorite stuff about films.
Deleted scenes in a comedy are deleted because they didn't get laughs. So I don't know what the real value of all those deleted scenes if deleted scenes from The Godfather, those are cool to watch, watch what didn't get into the movie.
It's fun to see. Some of the things actually are funny. And then now, they've seen Airplane and they know the jokes. So then when they see a deleted scene, they're ready and they'll see something that will just make them laugh because they're thinking that it's a part of the world, the universe of Airplane, and it gets them. But the other thing is you see actors, you see the real person. When you crack up and they go, "Okay, all right, I'm sorry. That's not the character, that's the actual actor speaking, and to me, that's fascinating, just seeing those things, seeing people being real, and it's just funny, and it's enjoyable kind of thing. David's right. You have to store that, all the film.
There's some gags I thought were funny. I don't know why they didn't get a laugh. Maybe we didn't give it enough previews. One time when Julie is looking ahead out of the cockpit and says, "Ted, the mountains, Ted, the mountains." Bob says, "But we're over Nebraska." And she goes, "The cornfields, the cornfields."
Yes, right.
So, I don't know. Why did that get a laugh?
Out of there.
I know.
Yeah.
But I think that is in the deleted scenes. I think that's in some of the DVDs.
If people were smart, if directors were smart about it, or whoever would want to, be in charge of re-releasing the thing, you re-release it and then you re-release it with some, a little of this, a little of that. But if they would just make nowadays a video copy and you can keep the hard drive or something, it's much less space, so much volume on it. That's a little gold mine, I think.
David, you talk often about some roles are so difficult to cast. As a director, what are you looking for? And when do you know when you have the right person?
Well, usually we don't know until somebody comes in and reads. Bob and Julie were very much alike in that respect because I think we read, dozens of actors. And when Bob read it, it was right. And Julie also, we read many actresses. And then when Julie read it, we laughed and we said, okay, she could do this. And part of it is, Bob and Julie don't act their way to being funny. What I always tell actors when I direct now is just let the lines do the work. Don't have to spin it at all. And Julie really played herself. That's what she's really like. She wasn't trying to be funny. She's very innocent. Bob, had this effortless ease about it. To be earnest and sincere, he had to really sell the seriousness of it. However, what you could do, Bob, a lot that Jerry and I and Jim were very happy with was doing some reaction shots. Like when you said it's a different kind of flying altogether, then Leslie and Lorna go, it's an entirely different kind of flying. And then your reaction when we cut back to you, I think that's what sells the gag. And then you just go on with it.
I remember when you were watching the dailies of that, you didn't notice it until in the dailies. Do you remember when you came back, all three of you came back and you said, do you realize at the end of that scene, when they said that line all together, your eyebrow raised up?
Yeah, his eyebrow went up. And
yeah.
I
said,
don't know.
Yeah, you just saw it in the dailies. You hadn't seen it.
And that's the kind of thing that I say, you can't direct that. It's just, you have to be, sometimes, the actor gets the last 10 yards himself without any blockers to get the touchdown. That was one of those things that happened. It was great. But Bob never tried to be funny. He never tried to break that believability that he was really in this drama. He was that character who had to fly the plane down and totally serious and never winking. And that's part of what we would drill into the actors anyways. I don't think we ever had to tell Bob, take it back a notch. Bob got it. Leslie got it totally. Robert Stack knew exactly what we were doing. Then Peter Graves, I don't know, he didn't have any problem with it. He knew not to be funny. But Lloyd Bridges, actually, he tried to put a little spin on his dialogue. And for a couple of weeks there, he was trying to make sense out of his dialogue and wanted to change his dialogue. And we said, Lloyd, we can't change this dialogue. It is what it is. You can't make it any funnier. And finally, Robert Stack said, Lloyd, just keep talking. They're not watching us anyway. Spears are going into the wall. Watermelons are falling. Just keep talking. Yeah. I always thought in Lloyd's performance, he was a little bit over what he should have been, whereas everybody else was right on target. But then in the Hot Shots movies, which Jim directed, he was perfect. I think he got it. But once he saw the movie, he got, that's what I'm supposed to do.
Bob, did you know to just do that in the audition even? Like and maybe this is a question for David too, is like, did you put a spin on anything in the audition and how did you know not to do that?
Well, before Bob answers, let me say, I don't remember if we told him or not. We may have said, just read it, but I don't know if we gave you the lecture of don't try to be funny.
I don't remember either. I don't remember that. I remember it more on the set with everybody, now this is the way we want to play it. We just remember, we want to keep it serious because, this is a serious thing. Just do the words. Just don't try to be funny. Just.
And we said, act like you don't know you're in a comedy. And I think that Lloyd, somehow you could tell just at least 5% he knew he was in a comedy.
I was in San Diego, a little small college where I stumbled into all this stuff, the theater, because that was the only, beginning acting was the only class open in the theater because I had transferred in late. And that's how I started with acting. Over the time there and then being at the Old Globe Theater in Balboa Park in San Diego, that's a really wonderful little theater. And I developed this thing that in comedies, just to be simple about it, in comedies, the mask of the laughter and, comedy and drama, the laughter and the frown kind of. In comedies, I would have a frown in my belly. And in dramatic stuff, I had a smile in my belly. So it was the opposite. I just would have that in there. So that was kind of a rough version of what David's talking about. But that's where it started for me. One other little quick thing, I mentioned this once to David, that to me, I was the sane one. I was the one that all the insanity revolved around me. And I was kind of like, what the heck? What is that?
Yeah, like your reaction to Altogether was that. I often say to actors, it's like you're on candid camera or on some hidden camera show. You can react like that. Like, did I hear that right?
When they started out with everybody from day one, and they would, throughout the shooting in the beginning of it, they'd have to remind people, or some scenes weren't exactly, maybe getting a little silly, remind them, we're playing this straight, just say the lines. And that really helped me to solidify that or make that a little clearer in my mind what I was doing. And it was great because it's so funny that you say cut and it's just explosions of laughter because everyone's keeping it serious. If you're doing it funny, hey, look at this. Aren't I funny? Then it's like, yeah, okay. You've already done it for the audience. I used to describe it as though it was like having a little astral projection of myself. You take somebody that's up on stage saying, "Okay, I'm gonna say this funny line now," and the little astral projection is saying, "Okay, now it's gonna be funny. Watch." And he would say the line, and the little guy looks at the audience and says, "It's funny, isn't it?" And my astral projection was looking at me, and I would say the line, and people would laugh, and he would look at the audience and say, "This is serious. What are you doing laughing?" And it made him laugh more, and that's the kind of thing that David, Jerry, and Jim wanted. They wanted it straight.
Right. This is what probably frightened us about Angie when we saw it. It's like, oh my God, they're all acting funny. We made a big mistake. This guy will never be able to do it. So yeah.
Aloha, Mr. Hayes. Thank you so much for doing this. You and Mr. Zucker are two of my cherished comedy icons. I wanted to ask you, what is your comedy core? What grabbed you? What formed your comedic core?
I love the Marx Brothers. I love Laurel and Hardy. Mel Gibson was huge on the Three Stooges, but I was more of a Marx Brothers guy. They got me. They really got me and made me laugh. And Laurel and Hardy got me too. I loved The Goon Show, which was just heard radio, tapes of the radio show. Beyond the Fringe, and then Monty Python, and Peter Cook and Dudley Moore when they did Pete and Dud and all of those things. A lot of British stuff, I guess, in there. I love old films, the 30s and 40s, the golden age. Frank Capra films. There's so much heart in Frank Capra films. When you've got a really serious, heartwarming film, and then suddenly the director trips you up with something that happens, it's so funny. You involuntarily explode with laughter, and it caught you by surprise. And I just love that. If you're doing a comedy, a lot of times it just becomes a and it just kind of stays the whole time up until Airplane happened. And then everything is like, what the hell was that? What the hell was that? And I think that's why a lot of people say that it was a groundbreaking film. It was so different than comedies for the most part. Jack Benny also got me. So it was a lot of old stuff like that. Then you get into the comedians. Stephen Wright was a fresh and new surprise to me when he came out. Anyway, on and on. This is a whole bunch of stuff. I never really thought about that or haven't for a long time. So thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Let's move into Devin with your question.
Mr. Hayes, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for taking the time and talking to us. I'd love to know, you're a pilot. You love to fly, and your father was an Air Force pilot. I'm really curious.
Marine Corps, be careful.
Oh, sorry, Marine Corps. That's on me. I'd love to know what it was like getting the role of Ted Stryker and how that was for you and sharing that with your family and with your father.
I brought them to the screening that we had at the Directors Guild, which was a big, it was a big one. A lot of people there in the industry. And when the scene goes on, as it's described in the script, it goes on panning across all of the gauges, and it's got the music, da-da-da-dum, da-dum, da-dum, and it keeps going and going. It's described as ad nauseum. It just keeps going. I think originally you wrote ad infinitum, and then it became ad nauseum. But it went on and on and on. And I said to Dad after it was over, I said, "Well, what'd you think of my flying?" And he just kind of, he was a big 6'3" Marine, and he was laughing. I would have to say, when we got there, there's all the people, of course, my 6'3" dad, my 5'2" mom are all dressed up, nice coat and tie and nice, I saw Peter Graves, and I thought, well, now there's somebody that maybe they'd like to meet. And Mission Impossible and all the kind of the way he always was such a solid stand-up kind of guy. And so I introduced him. And I said, Peter, it's my mom and my dad. It was Colonel John Hayes, and this is Peter Graves, and all of that stuff. And so they said hello, and did their introductions, and Dad wasn't one to just have idle gossip, idle talk. So as soon as they were finished with whatever they were saying, it was just standing there, and you're thinking, well, shoot, someone's got to say something. And I said, so Peter, how you been lately? And he said, oh, good. Had a strange hankering for little boys lately. And I looked at my folks, and my dad's eyebrows went up like, what? And I said, no. We're going to go and see the film. You're going to see in the movie. You're going to see it's a joke. It's a joke, you guys.
That joke is better said after the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Yeah. But they were looking for a way to get out and hadn't even gone in yet.
David, were your parents at that screening as well?
I doubt it. They were,
they're in Milwaukee, right?
They were on the set for a week or so, and my mom was in the movie. My mom was the lady who's trying to apply lipstick and gets it on her face. And then my parents and Jim Abrams' parents had a big screening at the Fox Bay Theater, which was our home theater from childhood, and invited, 600 people, everybody we ever knew, friends, my parents' friends, teachers, everybody was there.
It was a great.
It was like I was often thinking that was the high point of my life. It's been downhill from there. My life has been good, but nothing was like that night.
Thank you so much, Devin, for your question. How did the experience of starring in Airplane influence the rest of your acting career? I think you touched on this a little bit. How do you choose what film to star in after that?
I didn't have a manager that helps you pick and choose the right projects. And well, this one you should do because this is a huge cast of, A-list, and you'll be the second or third lead in that, but it would be really good for your career. And so I didn't know any of that stuff. I just would see a script and say, God, that looks like fun. And so, they're going to shoot that in Italy. Gosh. And it looks like fun. And I would look forward to see if the story was, was it something that would just kind of be fun to watch? If you're an audience, you wanted to watch it. So that was the way I did it. And I know there are a lot of actors that know they have this instinctive kind of thing. And I think Johnny Travolta is like that. And Cruise, I think, is like that. And Clooney and Brad Pitt. And they know what they want in their career and what all they need to do to build it and whatever. I just was enjoying the ride after that. And like I said, it was my first feature film. When they all of a sudden were saying, here, you want to star in this movie? Star in this movie? So the next 20-something movies, I was the star of the film. And the thing that I really liked about it was when you're starring in a show, if you're one of the stars of the show, you may have, which I have been, and you may have someone that's very strong-minded about things and would tend to want to kick up a ruckus if they didn't get their way. I like to have things go smoothly because I thought if you're having a good time and you're not going to have a prima donna on the set, you're going to have everyone working together, you can get things done. It's a long process. It's really exhausting. And for me, I've done films. I was in every single scene. One film I was in every scene, every single day except one day. And this was 6 days a week. And the one day that I wasn't working, I had no idea what to do. We were in Minnesota, and so I went to the set and just hung out. But it's exhausting because if you're in every scene, I use a lot of energy. I want to be focused in on it, and I want the camera to pick up on it. It picks up on you, your attention. If your eyes are glazed over, little X's where your eyes are supposed to be, and you're thinking about something else, or as an actor, if you're thinking about, wait a minute, what's my line? Oh, here come, and then you say the line. It's all in your eyes. You can see all of that. I tend to spend more energy than some others. I bore people to death, like David just left.
Junior couldn't get down the steps, so this is
doggy.
You never know what he wants. Yeah.
But anyway, that's just.
We can hear him bark now.
Yeah, that we can hear. Cute voice.
Oh my gosh, you may need to pick him up, David.
I know.
You gotta put him on your lap.
Now he's making me chase him around.
Oh God.
Come here, Junior.
Junior, stop being a spaz. Okay, we
Yeah.
have another question from Mark in the chat. He says, how much of the comedic timing was your decision versus the director's input, David, Jerry, and Jim's input? Do you ever use your lines in real life? And also, did you realize it was called Flying High in Australia?
That last answer is yes, I did. I was down promoting Airplane 2, which was Flying High 2. The whole reason for Airplane being a success is the boys. They wrote it, they created it, they submitted it, got rejected over and over and kept polishing and polishing and polishing. So by the time that we shot the film, it was so tight that you didn't change lines. The only thing was what you guys had, you'd call Steven Stucker up, right? And say, what would Johnny say here?
Yeah, well, Stucker wrote all of his own lines.
Right.
And he had been the piano player in our live stage show in LA, Kentucky Fried Theater. For the press conference, we called him up, asked him the questions that the reporters were asking, and he just came up with the lines. First take, we just did it.
Al and Norm were the two black
Al and
dudes.
Norm, yeah. Right.
And they came up to you and said, can we change these lines? What was it? Please do. We're three white guys from Milwaukee. What do we know?
Yeah, we don't know. We didn't know. They wrote their own dialect.
Jim came up to me and asked me to write some. He said, at the end of the day, he said, tomorrow we're going to shoot these scenes, but we don't have enough dialogue. Go home and write something tonight, which freaked the hell out of me because it's like, you guys are the writers. Who can't be the writer? And I calmed myself. I had an anxiety attack and I calmed myself down and said, okay, you bore people to death. You can write boring stuff. And I said, okay. And then I went back and I wrote some of the speeches where I was boring them, going through the jungle and the Jeep track with the axle. I had to stop and I just kept rambling on. I wrote all of
Yeah, I forgot that. Yeah, you wrote some of that stuff.
a lot of it got in there. Yeah. And you guys were probably on the side thinking, God, this is so boring. Gosh, that's perfect.
It's perfect. Yeah.
Did he get a writing credit for that?
No, he gets nothing.
No, wait a minute. You owe me residuals.
Sorry. Sorry, David.
Thank you so much.
In this kind of comedy, it's not so much comic timing. It's just dramatic timing. Just
Of course.
if Bob would say his lines just the way he would do it in a drama, or Leslie also, and then the comedy would work. If it wasn't, it's not like the Jim Carrey comic timing or Robin Williams. Those guys have a specific comic timing. In Airplane and The Naked Guns, it's dramatic timing.
Deadpan. And Bob, have you ever said, surely you can't be serious in real life? Have you ever used the lines out of the movie?
I think I did once. No, wait a minute. I did it 400,000 times. I didn't.
Yeah.
I've used what a pisser. People would come up and they'd say, oh, surely you can't be serious. There's Leslie's line. And I said, no, that was my line.
Yes.
No, it's Leslie's line. I said, no, I said that. Leslie said, I am serious. Don't call me Shirley.
You set it up.
Oh,
you set it up.
And I said, yeah. I said, it's a two-parter. Come on, get with us. Work with us here. And they go, oh, yeah. Okay.
The way Bob handles those things, he says, like, I was in the movie.
Yeah.
You're just an audience member. You're nothing. So that's pretty much Bob handles it.
What a pisser. That one's used a lot. We're all counting on you. That's.
I picked the wrong week to quit drinking or smoking or
sniffing glue. Yeah. That's been used a lot when they come up to me. In fact, I was at my sister's up in the Northwest and there was Italian Day barbecue out in the park. And there was a guy they were telling me about, Matty was his name. And they said he is the biggest Airplane. This is soon after it had just opened. And they said he's the biggest Airplane fan you will ever meet. And he was older than me. He was probably 10 years or 5 years older than me, and a real estate guy. And we couldn't find him. So we went over to his house and he wasn't there. So we left a note for him. And then we got back to the park and there he was. And we went up behind him and he's holding court and he had his all the time. I guess he had a scotch and soda all the time. And he was holding court with these people. And as I walked up behind him, they all started laughing. And I could tell that he was really thinking, man, I'm cooking. I'm really funny today. And he turned around and he looked at me and he said that more than anything else. And he just threw the drink in his face. And I didn't even get it at first. That was my line. I didn't even get it. And because it shocked me so much that he did it, and then realized, but get the drinking problem thing a lot. Or would you, hey, can you do that so I can take a picture? Or I kind of got a tuxedo on. I'd rather not,
Yeah.
But
Thank you.
there are
Thank you.
times you use the lines. Yeah.
I just want to say I'm fanboying so much. I'm just such a fan of the film and of David, but of the way you did the role. I'm just goosebumps to be even hearing your thoughts and commenting. So thank you for your time. Thank you.
When I was doing that tour around Australia, it was Sydney, Melbourne, and Perth, basically. And when we got out to Perth, they told me there was a little town outside of Perth, up north, and they had played Airplane solid. It hadn't been interrupted by any other movie. It was solid for 92 weeks by that time.
Excellent. So we have good taste down here, down under.
Yeah. Well, they had erected a 10-foot, the fence with the razor wire to keep them all in because they figured by that time all the people in the town were nuts.
Exactly.
They didn't want them getting out.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, they're just great. I loved it in Australia. I absolutely loved it. Great country. I love it.
I do want to have one last question from Robin because we have not heard from him yet. So, Robin, take it away with our last question.
Hi, Ellie. Thank you. You and Julie, I can't recall her last name. I believe that's the actress's name. The on-screen chemistry was really strong, really great opposites. Often we hear these actors and actresses, they have great on-screen chemistry, but perhaps behind the cameras, they were contentious, or there were a lot of infighting or bickering, or perhaps there was some actual chemistry. And so I just wanted, if you could just enlighten us a bit about your professional relationship, or did that blossom into a friendship, or was there any, I guess I'm asking for gossip.
Julie Hagerty is her last name. She was so wonderful from the time that we met. We became friends, and we still are friends now. And she's so great. But when people ask me about, what was she like, I said, well, there's one scene that we had to do another take on it. And it just shows what she's like. It was right behind the cockpit, and I had a line, she has a line. We're going back and forth, and we were in the coverage, I think. She blew the line. I said my line, and then she blew her line. They said cut, and that's her voice. That's not a character. So with that little light, airy voice, she said, "I'm sorry." And I said, "Okay, no, don't worry, Julie, it's okay. Give her the line." And so they fed the line to her. "Have you got it?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm sorry." I said, "Okay, don't worry about that. That's okay." I said, "Ready?" She said, "Yeah, I'm sorry." I said, No, it's fine." So then we do the thing. Now, during Angie, we'd have guests come on, or small parts would come on, and they'd be so nervous, and they'd blow a line. And they'd feel so bad, and you could see them beating themselves up. It's like, God, I just had this one line, and it was a scene with me. And then they'd say action, and then I would blow my line. And then I would, say, you infected me with this. And I'd turn it into a joke, and then it would make the audience laugh. They would laugh, and then they were relaxed. And I was thinking, should I do that with her? And while I was thinking, should I do it? I just blew the line. So they said, cut. And she said, "I'm sorry." I said, "No, Julie, that wasn't you. That was Bob." And she said, "Oh, I'm sorry." I said, "No." She's so sweet. She's so sweet. And she was just an absolute delight, and she still is. She's just delightful.
I remember during one take, you just called her Julie. You didn't.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. I
Yeah.
did. And you said cut, and I was like, what?
What I do? Yeah. Her name is Elaine.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining on this
Yes.
very, very first episode of Naked Comedy. Bob, thank you for being our first victim here. I hope you had fun.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that was
See
great.
everybody.
Everybody was
Thank you,
great.
Mr. Hayes. I mean,
Still,
Rob.
Yeah.
Bob, yeah.
Thanks, Bob.
And thank you, Dennis. Thank you for bringing up the fact that I'm so fluent in so many languages.
That's why I'm here.
I can say my name in about, 50 or 60 languages.
Sí, bueno gusto. Yo también.
I
Amazing.
can't say that much, just my name.
Just your name.
Thank you. Thanks
Yeah.
for letting me
Thank
come on. That was
you.
great.
Amazing.
Okay.
Thank you. And if anyone's watching this not in the community and you want to be part of these recordings, you can go to mastercrash.com and join future conversations as we get more victims into this room to ask them questions about comedy.
Good to see everyone.
Have a
Thanks,
wonderful
everybody.
time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Are you wondering how you can ask a question during one of these episodes? Being in the room is easy. Join us at mastercrash.com. Thanks for listening.